Welcome to the Football Retro Podcast.
The word welcome, I guess, is stretching it a little when you're an Australian in a place like this today.
Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of Football Retro. Today we have with us Ray and Adasi and Akram Tabouli. You guys want to say hello?
Hey everyone, pleasure to be on the show. Looking forward to talk some football.
Hey guys, this is going to be a fantastic new series. I'm really excited to get into the topic today, and we'll see where it takes us in the future.
Sweet. So the idea of this is to talk different football topics and hopefully get different discussions going on. Today we'll be talking about something that my guests here know a lot about, which is Real Madrid. So we'll be discussing Real Madrid's top ever 11. Okay, I may not know as much as these guys do, but I will be questioning on how they've come up with their answers. So first of all, how did you come up with your top 11? I mean, what was your criteria? Did you think about titles? Did you think a little bit about the player themselves? What was your criteria to choose your top 11?
I think for me, it was titles played a big part, but as well longevity at the club and also the impact that they had, the legacy they left at the club and how they were perceived, I guess, by the fans, because Real Madrid fans, as a lot of people know, can be some of the most demanding in the world and very fickle, as some would say. So titles, longevity, had the relationship with the fans, and I guess the time they left, the legacy that they left at the club.
Sweet. What about you, Ak?
Yeah, look, I think I kind of agree with Darcy over here. For the most part, I look at the eye test as well, how good they were on the field for when they played for Real Madrid. I think it's something to remember about. A lot of great players that played for Real Madrid, they played past their prime when they were in the club. But essentially, I kind of agree with Darcy's. Trophies have to be part of it. Definitely, when you support a club like Real Madrid, it's always about winning. But legacy and longevity has to play a part whenever you talk about sport.
And as I was saying to you guys before, yes, trophies play a part, but at the same time, if you look at trophies, there's two main eras that take that, and that's the Di Stefano era.
Dominated,
Exactly right. That's the Di Stefano era and that's the Cristiano era. So I'm guessing there are players outside those two eras that hopefully have made the top 11 for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. There'll be some players who my 11 who I saw in my time. They weren't in the Cristiano era or Di Stefano era, but they had a great impact on the club. And they were remembered by the fans, and yeah, I've put them in there because they deserve to be there for what they've given to the club and how they played and what they contributed to a massive club like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we're all kind of victims of the time that we live in, and that's the time we're most inspired by. So I think for both of us, we'll probably have quite a few players that are outside of the Cristiano era and the Di Stefano era.
Fair enough. Now, formation-wise, look, we're going to be flexible here. We can be a 4-4-2, it can be a 4-3-3. I mean, there's no real structure in regards to how you guys want to do it. If you want to have three defenders, you're more than welcome to.
Yep. But
at the end of it, I'll also like to talk about a possible coach. Who do you think is the greatest coach?
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
Cool.
So to get started, goalkeeper. Now, look, there's one that obviously stands out for everyone. But I'm wondering to see if you guys have anything different. So what do you, Adasi, start with you. Who's your goalkeeper in your top 11 for Real Madrid?
It's going to be obvious answer here, but for me, Iker Casillas, he's my choice simply because he spent 15 odd years at the club. He was captain as well, and the amount of titles he won from when he started as an 18-year-old played a key part in his first Champions League win in 2000. And he's from there, when he was 18, 19, cemented himself as the number one for Spain as well. And then he had that bit of a patch where he was, I think it was just the first year or two where he got onto the bench because of Cesar Sanchez. But after he had that break in that Champions League final, he came on in that final with 25 minutes to go and produced such important saves against Bayer Leverkusen to bring us that ninth European Cup. And from there, he just was producing amazing performances throughout the club, and it's very hard as well at a club like Real Madrid, given that they're known to have a leaky defence. So many times he stood out and just saved, if I can say this, their asses so many times in games, winning titles, and to deal with that with a leaky defence most of the time was very hard. And just the way he brought confidence to the club, and he did himself to the fans. They called him Saint Ika for a reason for that. And 15 years of the club, can't question that. He'd be number one for me.
It is an obvious answer, Akram.
Unfortunately, I have to agree with Adasi on this one.
Unfortunately.
Well, because I would like to think about some other goalkeepers that have had their time in the spotlight. Keylor Navas was someone who succeeded very highly at Real Madrid. 4 Champions League, saved their asses many, many times. However, it's just one of those things that, unfortunately, because I wish I could give someone else a different answer, it would be more interesting content for us. However, I will have to agree with Adasi. Iker Casillas is definitely Real Madrid's greatest goalkeeper. And I think this goes to one of the things that we were talking about before, just a few moments ago, Jonathan, where we were talking about trophies, but also longevity and the eye test. I think Iker Casillas' greatest moments came during Real Madrid's poorest years. When Barcelona were running rampant, Iker Casillas was in his prime for us. And that's when, of course, he succeeded so tremendously for the Spanish national team. For me, it's a clear answer, easy one. I think let's move on, mate.
But I think as well, just on that, I think Real Madrid's known as a club that was just known to attack, and kind of defense was left out of the question, let alone a goalkeeper. So you're bound to have times where goalkeepers weren't that successful, like Casillas. And you mentioned Navas, and yes, he was, and it's quite funny because if it wasn't for a fax machine, a broken fax machine, he would have been on his way to Manchester United.
100%.
On deadline day, but then he actually proved everyone wrong, stuck his head down, and won the Champions League three-peat as well, and he deserves to be mentioned as well.
And the reason I asked about criteria is, yes, Keylor Navas has won a few Champions Leagues, but when you go head-to-head, Casillas and Navas, I think Casillas wins by a mile.
Yeah.
5 times best goalkeeper in the world, is my personal favourite, is
100%. But that goes a lot to the eye test and also what he did for the national team.
Yep, I agree with that.
Cool. All right, this is an interesting one. Right back.
Aha, yes.
Akram?
So right back for us, I think, I'm not sure how...
For us or for me?
Well, for us, as meaning me and Adasi, supporters of the club, I know you're not one, but right back for me is a tricky one because of we've not had too many all-time great right backs in our history. Dani Carvajal does need to be considered because of the trophies. However, what role he played and how long he's been playing, I think probably give him a few more years. Mm-hmm. If he stays as Real Madrid's starting right back, and let's say they were hypothetically to win one more Champions League with Dani Carvajal or a couple of Spanish leagues, I would probably give it to him. However, I'd have to give it to Shendo. And that's because of the longevity he played in the club. He was a great steward of the club for many, many years. Approximately over a decade, right, at Darcy?
Yeah, now he's the match delegate.
That's right, yeah,
well,
100%. So, I mean, there are a couple of other nominees you could consider, but I would go with him.
For me, I'm going to go with Michel Salgado. He came to the club in '99, and he's actually the son-in-law of now the late former president Lorenzo Sanz. So at the time, I think a lot of people thinking, he's just a signing of the president because his son-in-law. But since he signed from '99, played till 2010, he won countless titles, 2 Champions Leagues, a number of La Liga as well. I think 4 La Liga titles, Super Cups, European and Spanish and Intercontinental Cups as well. And he was such a ever-presence down that right-hand side, running up and down, strong tackling, good in attack as well. He then made the Spain squad as well with his strong performances, and he kind of solidified his position down in that right-back spot for a long time.
I think for me... Yeah. Sorry, man. I think for me, I tend to forget about him a little, and I tend to underrate him because he was so overshadowed by his counterpart on the left side, Roberto Carlos. So for me, I didn't always... consider him such an integral part of the club or of the starting 11, if I may. And I mean, regarding the idea of the accusation of nepotism on Lorenzo Sanz's part, it's kind of true, mate. Like we had Christian Panucci that was doing pretty well before Salgado.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, these things happen. I mean, it's happened in Benny Sports, where
Yeah,
people
true,
at the head of the club will hire their sons or their in-laws or whatever. But I think down the track, I think Salgado proved that he deserved the spot. I think given the performances he put in, and he was watching him down play that right side. He just never gave up. 100% throttle, chasing back, was a strong tackler, always committed, and I think the fans loved him for that. And that's why he was there for 10 years.
I think, I think just to throw it out there, just to not to defend my pick too much, because I do see where Darcy's coming from, and I do think that he's made a very good point there. And it's tough, Jonathan, when you are talking about the top 11 of your favourite club, because it's not exactly like you hate any of the players or that you begrudge any of the trophies that they won.
No, it's not an easy task.
No, it isn't.
No.
But Chendo did go through the Quinta del Butre era, five Spanish league titles during a time where leagues were very hard to come by. 5 league titles, I believe, in a row.
That's right, yep, in the 80s.
That's a massive achievement and they always say clubs, sometimes a greater achievement is to defend a league title because of the consistency you need over 38 games, whereas the Champions League, you do tend to rely on quite a bit of luck.
And now these days, Real Madrid in La Liga aren't quite the dominant force as they were back in the days. We did win one La Liga now, for example, then next 4 or 5 years it'd be Barcelona dominating.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
They haven't had that stranglehold on that league yet.
Yeah, and I think that if you were to ask Zinedine Zidane and a couple of the other major Real Madrid players and representatives of the club now, that they would probably sacrifice the last Champions League for a league title or two, because it is something that I think sticks in their core, that Barcelona has been able to dominate the La Liga for so long now.
That's an interesting conversation. Different.
For another day, maybe.
Maybe for a different topic. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, again, we're going to unpack a lot of different things if we keep going down that track. But I think there's 2 right backs that you guys mentioned are 2 top picks for Real Madrid fans around the world.
Yeah.
Centre backs, and I'll be surprised if you have anyone different to the 2 that I've got written down here. So we'll start with you, Darcy. Your first centre back.
First centre back, Fernando Hierro.
The captain of the club.
Captain of the club for a long time. Led for the club. He came from Valladolid in 89, 90. And he started off in midfield and he scored a fair bit of goals from the midfield, and then made himself as a centre back, and he was just rock solid, and he stuck into the opposition, especially in El Clásicos, and the fans loved that. That's back when those battles were so fierce and tense, and Real Madrid fans loved that kind of tenacity from players, giving their all and bleeding for the club, and he was like that. Gets stuck into the opposition strikers, making it very tough for them. And when he unceremoniously got dismissed by the club in 2003, sorry, it's been a long time ago now, 2003, and his departure was felt afterwards. He wasn't replaced properly, and
so who was the centre backs once he left?
Well, that's a good question, because when he left,
there was a rotating roster.
It was rotating, and no one cemented themselves at the back. It was really bad. It was supposed to be Gabriel Milito, the Argentinian who signed, but they found something in his medical, and he didn't sign. So he went to Zaragoza, and then Zaragoza won the Copa del Rey in 2004 against Real Madrid in the final.
And he ended up being at Barcelona.
And then we ended up getting played
for a number of years.
But then eventually he had injury problems, so maybe our doctors were right. Who knows?
Yeah. Our injury doctors were worried about 5 years down the line.
Maybe the doctors knew something that we didn't. But anyway, the thing is, Real Madrid had players from Castilla coming through, and they showed promise at the start. Alvaro Mejia was one of them, Raul Bravo another one. Ivan Helguera played at the back, but he's more of a defensive mid, but just didn't quite work. And letting go of Hierro, not just he was there for so long, but his presence...
How long was he there for?
13, 14 years.
And he's very well known for his Spanish appearances.
And it was sad because he got dismissed the day after won the league in 2003. And I just think he was just the way he fought for the club, he captained, and I think he was so strong in the air, so strong physically. I think that's what made me one of my picks.
Would you agree with that, Akram?
Yes, I'm going to have to agree with that one as well. It always annoys me or irritates me when I have to be too agreeable, Jonathan. But I'm going to have to
very argumentative, this guy.
I'm going to have to agree with Darcy on this
Akram
one.
likes to argue.
Yeah, guys, as you're watching this, you'll tend to find this out about me, that I tend to be a bit disagreeable at times. But today I'm going to have to agree with Darcy that Hierro does deserve the spot. I was thinking about Santa Maria, who played as the centre back for the 50s Madrid, and who was a stalwart for them for many years. 5 Champions League trophies is really hard to compete with. However, the eye test, the fact that.
So what do you mean by eye test?
In terms of what we saw when we were watching, what we saw when we were viewing them on the field, and what we.
So are you comparing when you say eye test?
Yes.
Do you mean us
compared to
in,
other
in
players?
our generations that we were able to watch them live?
Yeah.
Compared to the Di Stefanos,
Yeah,
who
that's
we
right.
watch videos of or hear about.
That's right, and the fact that you're able to, we grew up with them, and then you were able to see them against other opponents,
Week in, week out.
other defenders, other attackers. What that era was, because any player can only play as well as the era that they're given. And honestly, you have to admit, like when it comes to things like this, there is a fair bit of bias. That was the era that we grew up in. He was a club legend, a captain who represented his club very well and very loyal while he was there. And also, I just loved what he did after his career for Real Madrid. Went off to Bolton Wanderers, tried to push them up to a UEFA Cup kind of level, which I always really respect when big players go off to small clubs within Europe to try to push them up as well. Adasi, I was going to ask you though, in your top 11, would you consider him maybe your captain, or is there someone else in your top 11 that you would give the captain armband to?
Let's leave that to the end. That's something I was going to ask right at the end.
It's a good question because there's a few in there that deserve the
So
captaincy.
let's go through the 11 and then we'll
discuss that after at
who
the
gets
end.
the captaincy. Look, I know you hate to agree with everyone, Ak, but
Yes.
when it comes to centre backs, there are 2 that stand out. I'm not a Real Madrid expert. That's what you guys are. But there are 2 that stands out. So next to Hierro,
Sergio Ramos.
would you put Ramos?
Sergio Ramos.
Has to be Ramos.
Has
isn't
to
it?
be.
That's Adasi's boyfriend.
Has to be. Has to be. I mean, this guy won 4 Champions Leagues with us, won a World Cup, won a Euro. The guy has done so much within his career, and as a position, very similar to Hierro, though he's gone beyond what was on the field. He's a club legend as a captain and a player that I think. A phrase you always like to say, Jonathan, is that if he's not on your team, you hate him. But if he's on your team, you love him.
Well, especially me as an Argentinian, like him and Messi had run-ins. He scored against Simeone in the final in the last minute.
Threw the ball over Messi's head and chopped him a few times as well.
You can't fight against him if he's in your team.
Chopped him a few times.
No, you'd love to have him on his team. A master of the dark arts, if there ever was one.
Yeah, I think Ramos has to be there. Been there, club came in 2005, been there 15 years plus. I think for me, not just the titles like he's won with the club, but I think his resilience as well for me stands out. Like I remember 2012 when he missed that penalty in the shootout against Bayern, when he skied it over over the bar, and all the memes started coming out that ended up in Mars.
You're always going to hold that against him.
He just matured so much, and then now he hasn't missed a penalty since then, not that I know of. That he's mastered the Panenka, and not
he
just
doesn't
that.
have a tendency to use that.
He does use it a lot now. He's kind of slowed down at that, but just his maturity on that, and then that image as well of his the year after in the Champions League semi-final loss to Dortmund, we lost 3 years in a row, and he was in tears. Casillas consoling him. If you look it up and do a search on that, you see him. He was crying, and he probably thought, "This isn't my chance to win a Champions League." Like this, 3 years in a row, getting knocked out the same stage. And then before that in the round of 16, it was like 6 years in a row, and then he just came back, and the year after that 92nd minute goal in the final against Atletico to send it to extra time, that header to win, and then the wins, then goes on to win La Decima, and then from there it was just, as I say, history tells itself,
Unfortunately, you can't argue against Ramos.
And you ask any player now, the toughest defender they've played against is Sergio Ramos. Guys like Robert Lewandowski and all these other guys, and they just say he's just so hard to play against.
And he made part of the Spain's ever best.
And what he's done for Spain as well, another thing. But as well, one more thing, like I think he doesn't get much the credit he deserves because he's got a lot of red cards in his career, 25 plus. But I must say, a lot of them were quite rubbish red cards.
That's because he's a grub.
And then you've got to be fair, like no offense to Liverpool and English Premier League fans, but the way Liverpool fans and media carried on after that 2018 final
Oh yeah, 100%.
with the injury to Mohamed
Oh come
Salah.
on, guys! Yeah, seriously, get over it by now.
That kind of they keep bringing that up, but
Salah tripped. It happened.
they
And
tangled.
Ramos is a grub.
Look, he can be reckless. I will say
He can be reckless.
but not dirty.
Alright, let's use different words. You say
can be-
reckless, I'll say grub.
But
That's as far as we're willing to go.
there's a difference.
Reckless.
There's a difference, but yeah, but
Alright.
he definitely has to be there.
Left back. Let me ask you:
Yes.
are we going to have the Roberto Carlos Marcelo discussion here, or do you have any other names?
I'm not sure what Adas picked. We did not discuss this before the beginning of the podcast. I think because we wanted it to be fresh.
So it's a Brazilian left back discussion.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Well,
one thing.
I went Marcelo.
Oof.
Oh,
Ooh.
Adasi?
Why?
fair enough. I went Roberto Carlos.
Wow. Okay, here we go.
All right. Why and why?
All right, for me, Roberto Carlos, simply because he made that left back position his own for a number of years, and he had that as well, that ability of his free kicks, which brought his level up and his popularity, which was one thing for the Real Madrid fans, but also non-stop running up and down. Like I said, I think that left back spot was his from what I remember when he signed in 96, 97. I couldn't remember a time when he was dislodged from that spot. That was his spot, that left back spot. And the amount of goals he chipped in, the amount of runs he made down, the amount of goals he set up as well, that cross for Zidane in the 2002 final, which now was on this day 18 years ago. How time flies. And I just think that
On this day.
yeah, May
That's
15,
amazing.
2002.
All right.
Amazing.
What a perfect time to do this podcast.
Just shows we're getting old, guys. He's just his amount of goals he scored. Not only that, but his contribution down that left, amount of goals he set up. One particular goal set up, I think, for Guti in 2001. That cross from the left and that amazing volley he did. Just one example of why.
Well, there's also that free kick against Bartes for Brazil.
Yeah, that put
There's
him on the
that,
map.
Who did he score the goal against where the ball was going out?
Tenerife.
And the ball was going
And
out and
Tenerife.
he just curved it in.
Yeah, just things like
And
that.
to be honest, when you look at a lot of top 11 of all times
Mm.
from a few different players, he appears in a lot of them as well as the best left back of all time.
Yeah, and look, he's Brazilian, and a lot of Brazilian fullbacks tend to leave
Attack.
space at the back. And there were times where he did, but there was a lot of times where I remember he'd run back, and I remember in the 2000 Champions League final, lost the ball to Mendieta, and then Mendieta running down the field, and out of nowhere, the picture, Roberto Carlos comes and slide tackles him and gets the ball off him again. Just things like that. I think the way he did himself to the fans, and he's my pick.
Cool.
It was a tough one. It wasn't easy, but
Yeah.
I think he just edges it.
Hack?
Well, for me, see, that's the thing is like it is a tough one, and especially because both being Brazilian, both having a similar style of play, it makes it very difficult to choose between them. For me, though, I think Marcelo did provide a bit more stability on the defensive end in his prime years, a little bit more than Roberto Carlos. To be honest, Roberto Carlos played a lot more of a left wing kind of position, a left wing back. In a four-man defense, he was playing more like a left wing
So you
back
say
than a
that
left back.
he prioritized his attack more than his defense?
They both did, but I believe Marcelo was a little bit more balanced with it.
Yeah.
I think what Marcelo brought to the table in terms of ball retention, in terms of creativity, I think was something that Roberto Carlos, definitely had his strengths in attack. I think Marcelo brought out a lot of unpredictability. I think the 4 Champions Leagues that we've won with Marcelo at left back, he's been integral too, in terms of retaining possession, in terms of creating opportunities, passing the ball, dribbling through. He was a lot more unpredictable in attack and created a lot more unpredictable goals. But this is like what we said before. It's the eye test versus things like legacy and trophies. So for me, yeah, definitely, I think Roberto Carlos, when you watch him play, his athleticism, his strength, his speed, his relentlessness, his long shots, you couldn't help but love Roberto Carlos when he was on your team.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Marcelo 4 Champions Leagues, Roberto Carlos 3.
Is that the main thing edging?
I think that's what edges me out for him.
Yeah, okay, numbers don't lie, but I think for me, Marcelo, the reason he doesn't get that nod is because he has over the time lost his spot. Like I think there was a time where Fabio Coentrão, the Portuguese left back, was the starter purely because of his defensive
Come on, but that was for a very
reliability.
small window.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you see because of that was that, and then now as well towards the end of his career, Marcelo has lost his form, and I'm just worried that that's going to tarnish all the good work he's done. Like at the moment, you put him in now, and there's a difference between him there and Furlong Mendy. And even when Sergio Reguilon was playing at left back, when Solari used to pick Reguilon, and the reason for that was because Reguilon was more reliable and he was in the better form. So, yeah, Marcelo definitely will be regarded as a legend of the club. 13 years there, came in, was it 2007 as an 18-year-old with Higuain and Gago at the same time.
Really?
Yeah.
In the winter transfer, right?
And Roberto Carlos was still in the school. That was in Roberto Carlos' last year.
And Roberto Carlos mentored him.
And Marcelo slowly established himself in that left back spot over the years, and then was a more regular.
One thing I want to say though is that what you're referring to at the end of Marcelo's career, and you're using that as a bit of a negative. What with Ferland Mendy and Sergio Reguilon being better options at times. At the same time, he has played for the club somewhat longer than Roberto Carlos, wouldn't you say? 2006, 2007 to 2008.
Yeah, but then he goes back to the criteria.
A couple of years more, but I think as well, like I said, during that time, there was a time where Colin Trowell was a left back because of his defensive reliability, and Mourinho actually preferred that. So, yeah, but then, of course, Colin Trowell lost his form and then other issues as well with his self-confidence, and Marcelo regained his spot. But yeah, it's a tough one because they've both been there so long, 10 years plus at one club. And, to be at a club like Real Madrid for that long, you've got to be, and with the amount of trophies you have, you've got to be recognised.
Paper-thin differences.
It is.
All right, defensive mid.
Oof.
Okay.
And I'm sure this was a tough one for you guys.
It was.
Akram, who do you have?
Okay. See, this is a tough one because it goes against a lot of some of the criteria that we've referred to. It's purely based off that personal preference, which is Fernando Redondo.
Okay.
And that's because of the style of play. CDM who could control the midfield defensively, mark an attacker out of the game, but still had the ability to dribble, to pass, and to create.
So to you, Redondo was the best.
I think he was in terms of ability. He was.
Okay.
I think he deserved his spot, and I think he deserved to stay longer at Real Madrid than he did. When he left the club, I don't think there was a real legitimate reason to leave. I think it was a case of some politics going on there between Lorenzo Sanz and Florentino Perez, and I think he definitely deserved to stay longer, and in which case his legacy would be greater. I think injuries took away a lot of what people remember from Redondo. I think if he was able to play longer, deeper into the early 21st century, he would have been widely remembered as a better player than he was. His dribbling and attacking ability combined with that ability to defend and organise, I don't think we've seen too many players like that in any club sense.
Well, in '98, I believe he really did really well for Real Madrid.
Yes.
And he didn't make the World Cup because of a disagreement with the coach.
That's something to do with his hair or something.
Over cutting his hair, yeah.
Daniel Passarella, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, Adasi,
that was a tough one. For me, I'm going to agree with Akram here. I'm going to say Redondo.
Wow. I didn't expect
It was actually tough because it was either him or Claude Makelele. I think for me, what gets Redondo over the line was he was at the club longer. I think he had a better relationship with the fans, not so with the fan, but also with the club. And also, that was the way he played the game. He looked so calm, composed, even though he was in that defensive midfield role. Like he'd have the way he'd give confidence to the defense, the way he'd have that great vision with him with his passing, where he would move up the field. He'd just glide up the field, and then you can't as well. The one impact that I'll always remember, and I watch it over and over again. It's been 20 years now. That back heel against Man United at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
I mean,
He sets up Raul.
Yes, like Henningberg was just sitting there. What the hell was that? And then Alex Ferguson.
He was a different class. I think a lot of his mental aspects stopped him from. Excelling.
I've never seen anything like that in my life, and I think that that game for me was such a important win for Real Madrid. That, and not just for that season, but also going forward, because they were struggling badly in the league. They finished 5th in the league. If they hadn't won the Champions League that year, God knows what would have happened to the club financially, without having that Champions League financial incentive. But as I think Redondo just shades it over Makelele, only because Makelele, he was there for 3 years, and as much as he was such an important player for the club, I think what tarnished it for him was the way he left the club as well, Makelele.
True. I mean, but both clubs left fairly unceremoniously.
Yes.
Redondo didn't want to leave in 2000. He left because he was Lorenzo Sanz's guy, and
From
Florentino
Perez won the
Perez
election.
won. So it was a political thing, just like when Makelele left.
True, but Makelele, I think his issue was he had a disagreement with Perez about pay.
True.
Finance. He wanted to be paid exactly the same as the Galacticos at the time, and he was a great player. But I just think Redondo,
He was a great player.
he was just the way he played the game was just beautiful to watch.
Yeah, I think the thing is about Makelele, and we've got so many fond memories. All three of us do of him. As Jonathan, you grew up as a Chelsea fan in that early 21st century, and when Makelele went to your club, that really changed the course of your club. Or at least it was around the same time that your club's history was changing. So I think like everyone has fond memories of the player, and he really did kind of create a role, the Makelele role, as the anchorman who would sit back and just be the water carrier for the attacking players. But when you are talking about who's better and who should be on an all-time great list, I've got to give it to the player who could control the midfield, who could defend and mark out players as well as provide something in attack, where Makelele was a lot more one-sided.
Yeah, and I think as well that kind of gets that because he had the defensive side and the offensive game to him, which just shades it. But Makelele, he's up there as well, and he's only there for 3 years. But he's the reason he's there because of the importance he had. And when he left the club, there was no replacement for him. They tried with David Beckham in the defensive role with Cambiasso. That kind of worked for a bit, and then
It could have worked.
Then
if
he
you
had
gave it a
then
lot
had Thomas
longer.
Gravison come in, Pablo Garcia, and then a few other guys came in. Until now, Casemiro has
And I think,
Cemented a spot.
cemented that spot as the defensive midfield role.
and I was going to bring Casemiro up because he did. I was considering him as well.
Yeah.
Several Champions League trophies. This past season, he's been like our best player, consistent every game, every week.
And when he's not playing, you can see the difference.
You can see the difference.
Yeah, but Redondo's Argentinian, so he wins. All right.
You had to throw that in there.
Just a side note, I just want to say Beckham and Cambiasso would have been a pretty good partnership if they had let it go on a bit longer. Cambiasso flamed out at Real Madrid, but then became an all-time great CDM at Inter.
Yeah, true. All right, your second midfielder.
Oh,
Like a midfielder.
this is when it gets interesting, doesn't it?
Okay, so if we're going to talk more in attacking sense, like a
It's
midfielder,
up to you how you want to. Like, there's three. If you want three midfielders, you can have that. I've got a few names here that I'm going to ask you about at the end. Who would you have in your lineup?
I'll have definitely one midfielder, Zinedine Zidane. He has to be one of the greatest players of all time. Just watching him play was just like poetry in motion, to be honest. The ball was just glued to his feet. The skill he had, the way he played the game, he just made it look so easy. And there's a reason why he's one of the greatest of all time that I've seen, and for a lot of people as well. And he's impacted the club. That goal in the Champions League final, 2002, that volley, yes, it was 18 years ago.
How long was he there for at the club?
5 years.
Okay.
5 years. He came in 2001. Remember, expensive signing in the world.
So
at
he
the time.
retired at Real Madrid.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
So he retired at Real Madrid.
Not every player can say that, can they?
No,
Not even the great Raul can say that.
no, that's
No.
right. No, the few that have retired, but yeah, Zidane was
Yeah.
one of them. And you just go watch the way he played the game. You see the skill he had, the great goals he scored too.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
just like simple goal, but just
The ball control.
Ball
everything.
control, just the amount of skill he used to get around players. That goal against Deportivo in 2002, in La Liga, that beginning of 2002, where he just glided between 3 or 4 defenders and shot it past the goalkeeper. Unbelievable goal. Check it out. And it's a shame though for him that his last 3 years, I think I can agree that the Galactico era was not as successful.
It was a farce. Let's
Not
just
on
call
the
it a
field,
farce.
on the field, not financially. I'm not talking about marketing side of things aside, but in terms of on the
Footballing
field,
success.
like there was no success, no trophies, and I think
was a
it's such a
circus.
shame that he had to be a part of that. But it still won't tarnish his legacy at the club. And look, he's he bleeds the club.
Yeah.
He bleeds the club. He was he got hired as a ambassador in 2009 when Perez was re-elected, and he worked his way through as a director and then assistant coach and then coach of Castilla and then coach of the first team. And and his sons play for the club as well.
Yeah.
So he's Madridismo to the heart.
Good. Hack?
So this is a funny one for me because I one of my midfield three is Zinedine Zidane. But in terms of positioning him, I would put him slightly further up in the field as a centre midfielder with a little bit more license to attack. So I'll go with Zinedine Zidane for this one particular position, and then the third one we'll see what me and Darcy have for that one. With Zidane, for me, one of the greatest players of all time, my favourite player. I still contend he's perhaps a top 5 player of all time, Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
Where I look for him is the fact that I think he was one of the most clutch players football's ever seen. I think people really underrate his 2 goals in World Cup final, one of the greatest goals in the Champions League final 2002, and a Panenka against Gianluigi Buffon against Prime Buffon in the 2006 World Cup final.
Don't forget that part.
Another clutch moment. Let's be honest here.
Can't forget that headbutt.
He honestly was one of the reasons why you would call football the beautiful game. I don't think much more needs to be said. It's one of those things where legacy, longevity, you throw it out the window with Zidane. Trophies, you throw it out the window. He won a Champions League, he won a La Liga, but that's all you needed. To watch him, the eye test, see him on the field was enough for you to say you love the player.
We should start calling Akram the optometrist here because there's so many eye tests.
Gotta go get my eyes checked now. Good. But I think trophies aside, I think he just suited the club so much.
Yeah, look, as a player, you can't argue.
And fans come for that. Fans, to be honest, Real Madrid fans at the Bernabeu, they come for entertainment, and he was that. The way he played the game, he was just beautiful to watch, and that's why he deserved to be there. And just like you mentioned, 1998 World Cup, 2 goals in the final, that catapulted him, and then Euro 2000 as well, where we carried France as well in that, and then 2006 we retired from France after Euro 2004. He came back, and then he helped him guide him to the World Cup and to the
100%.
final.
I think we would have to say the 2 most prestigious competitions in football.
Yeah.
The World Cup and the Champions League. The man has scored 4 goals in 3 finals. I don't know how many players have actually done that.
Good point. So you guys agree. I like that. All right, third midfielder.
You go.
Okay. I went with Luka Modric.
Oh, interesting.
For me, I did think about a bit of tactics, and I wanted to go with Luka Modric second after Redondo because I figured. So if I would have my CDM as Redondo, my centre midfielder would be, I would want someone who would go up and down the field and kind of boss the midfield as well with his energy, with his tackling, with his running. And you have to give it to Modric. He does everything on the field. When he was at his best, 2018 World Cup, he was one of the greatest midfielders throughout that entire year and a top, maybe I would say perhaps a top 10 midfielder of all time.
Ooh, that's a big call.
It's a big call.
Are you saying that because of the Ballon d'Or trophy or because of your own personal...
I think the Ballon d'Or trophy was given because of that, because of his accomplishments. If you go back to that 2018 World Cup, and I'm not sure, I don't think I have the exact stats here with me, but in terms of kilometers run, interceptions, key passes, the man bossed the midfield from defense to attack. In Real Madrid, he was perhaps the best player throughout that 4 Champions League run, with the exception of a notable person we'll get to later.
To get a Ballon d'Or in the Messi Cristiano era is not easy either.
You have to give that to him, and I love the fact that you gave it to a player whose role wasn't to score goals. It's not all about goals and assists, people. He did something that no one's done since 2007. Which is break the Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi duopoly. And like I said, a bit of tactics there, 3-man midfield, 1 CDM, and I would like one who's going to run up and down the field and do a bit of hard yards as well. So that's why I put Modric.
So you have Redondo, Zidane, and Modric.
Yeah. Zidane slightly up ahead,
Yeah.
Modric running up and down, controlling the midfield, and Redondo being his awesome self.
Nice. Adasi.
It's going to be a bit of an agreement show here because I was going to say Modric as well.
Wow.
Because
I did not expect this.
yeah, I just think the Ballon d'Or he won in 2018 kind of cemented himself as the quality that he has, and taking Croatia all the way to the final, playing a key part in that. And at Real Madrid as well, I think what stood out for me at Real Madrid for him was he got voted from Marca, the daily Spanish sports newspaper in Madrid, as the worst signing in 2012. He had just signed in late in the 2012 summer transfer window, training by himself at Tottenham. He came in, and I think they judged him over 4 or 5 months, right? And then they say the worst signing. Like, don't forget, like Spanish media is silly, all right? And the Spanish fans are very fickle.
I think sports journalists.
But Spanish media can be really, really hard to read and then see. And then I think after that game against Man United, that goal in the Champions League second round in 2013 at Old Trafford, that long distance shot into the back of the net, it was past De Gea. Yeah, past De Gea. I think from there, he just proved everyone wrong, and
100%.
he made that position his own, and he just went on and on to win so many trophies with the club. Not only that, but just like Akram was saying, his energy, his shooting, his box to box movement,
his movement off the ball,
just unbelievable. Yes, he's getting on now with age a bit, but he's still an important presence in the club. And
look, he scored against Argentina in the World Cup, so I'm going to disagree with you guys. What about?
He has to be good.
What about club legend Piri?
See, that's where a lot of people would probably go because of the amount of trophies and the longevity that we talked about before.
So he's one that stood out and popped up at all times.
100%.
When I did a bit of research in regards to Real Madrid's midfield, he's the number one name that kept on popping up regardless of where I looked.
I think,
so you guys, interesting for you, both of you, to not pick him at all.
I think for him, his role was more of a CDM, whereas Modric was a bit more high.
So forget Modric,
attacking.
just overall in your midfield.
So overall,
going back to the optometrist Akram here for the eye test.
Eye test.
Well, I mean, we did grow up watching Luka Modric.
That's the thing.
I do remember in 2012 when he signed, me and Adasi having a discussion about it, and I was one of those people.
You're skeptical.
I was a little skeptical because Real Madrid, as a club, being known for signing the superstars, I was a little unsure about Modric coming from Tottenham. But so moving on, like you said, moving away from Modric, it's more about who do you leave out then? If you let me
There's a few names as well.
Let me give you 3 names. Let me give you 3 names that could possibly make this Real Madrid midfield.
Sure.
Piri, Amaro, and Kento.
Yes.
Yeah, Kento was one I was going to put in. Kento.
Look.
So these are 3 guys that were in the Di Stefano era. Correct me if I'm wrong.
And Hento was
Amancio Amaro.
Yes.
Amancio Amaro, well, he took place just after the Di Stefano era, and he was more of a bridge between it. I'm not sure if he did play with Di Stefano. I think he did. But his real running form came in the mid-60s where he, for the what they were referred to as the Yeye squad in the 1960s because of their appropriation of the Beatle haircut, Jonathan.
Okay.
So, and they won the 1966 Champions League?
Yes.
Which Amancio won as perhaps the best player in that era. He definitely deserves it. I'm just unsure about when it comes to positions. Amancio was also a bit of an attacking midfielder, as far as I'm aware. So when we were looking at the 3-man midfield, it was a difficult one to place him there. Also, Piri was more central defensive midfielder, and like I said, it comes down to who do you take out. I love Redondo. I love Zidane. Yeah. So as a default, both players move out.
So
Hento was a winger. He's a left winger. He was the Gareth Bale of the 50s, and honestly,
with less golf.
Yeah, at least he prioritised Madrid.
100%. But he definitely deserves a massive call out. But we'll talk about him when we do the attacking line because he was definitely more of a left wing.
And as well, his most successful Real Madrid player, 6 European Cups as well. So he was definitely in contention. So being a part of that long, you'd have to have some sort of discussion about that. But
let's move towards the forward line then.
No problem. Which position you want to do first?
So top 3. Top 3. You guys tell me what you want to do first.
I reckon Well, let's go left wing because I think we'll go with the boring choice first.
Look, it's up to you how you line it up as well. If you only have 2 strikers, 3 strikers, it's up to you.
Yeah.
But your front three, start off with your first one, Ak.
Left wing, Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, as you guys will come to find out, I'm not the biggest fan of Cristiano Ronaldo. If we were talking about our favorite top 11 for Real Madrid, Johnny, I don't think I would put Cristiano Ronaldo into the top 11. And that's because I never felt like he truly loved the club. I think the club was a convenience in terms of, from a business point of view, from a brand point of view, and from a competition point of view, rather than something that he truly bled white. He truly loved the badge of Real Madrid. However, after saying all that, top goal scorer, 4 Champions Leagues, several Ballon d'Ors. I mean, he's perhaps
the second best of our generation.
And perhaps the greatest
Stock
player.
standard answer from Argentinian.
Perhaps the greatest player Real Madrid has ever had. His goal scoring output is ridiculous. I'll be honest, when you told us that we were doing this topic for the first episode, I was tempted to leave him off. There are players like Francisco Gento, who 6 European Cups, like Adasi said, was incredibly pacey, great dribbler, and to be honest, some of the moves he did in the 50s, some of the tricks he tried, you'd probably take him off the field for being that audacious, to try to be that silly with the ball. He was a great entertainer. He was Ronaldinho before Ronaldinho. He was Gareth Bale before Gareth Bale. But Cristiano Ronaldo has a scoring output that can't be argued with.
Nice.
I think, man, I think the 9 years of the club, and I'm actually surprised you put him in there because so many years I've heard you say, no, he should be sold, and here you are now putting him in. So it's good to see that you've realised he's contract. But anyway, that's good. It's good that I think, like as actually mentioned, he's the man of goals, 450 goals over 438 games. It's more than a goal a game, yeah.
That's
trophies.
way more than a goal.
Not just that, like, just his presence there, like the amount of times he was so influential, and the amount of times he stepped up in big games, so important.
I get where Ak is coming from as well, though. Like there was a Champions League game that ended up being a draw with Atletico Madrid, and then they won 4-1 in the
final.
You see him not celebrating any goals except for his own.
Look,
like so in that sense, you feel like Real Madrid is not his priority, but himself is.
100%.
I don't know about Real Madrid wasn't his priority, but he's always put
winning
himself. He's very competitive. He's like Michael Jordan, I'd say.
So he goes back to the criteria that you guys use in order for your starting 11. As an individual, you can't really leave him out, can you?
No, you can't.
Okay.
I mean, at the end of the day, stats are stats, and accomplishments are accomplishments. If you're a true diehard Real Madrid supporter, you support your players 100%, and those players brought us 4 Champions Leagues in 5 years. That's a feat that I don't think is going to be matched for a long time.
Yeah.
However, I do want to point out one thing. At the end of our last Champions League win, he soured our win by whinging about the club and then putting out that he might perhaps leave. So myself and Adasi were sitting there at 6 o'clock in the morning,
trying to celebrate,
cheering our win, and then we're like, what? He might be leaving? So yeah, mate, I got to tell you, Jonathan, do you want? I changed my mind. Let's take him off. Put Gento back.
Look,
I got to tell you.
I think his what they call it in Spanish, muy triste moment, whereas I'm very sad.
I love hearing an Arab speak Spanish.
No, like that's what it was.
How would you say?
And look, a lot of people were annoyed. A lot of people were annoyed with that, and it annoyed me too. Like seeing him act, I'm like, just get on with it. You're at the best club. You're winning. You're scoring, but at the end of the day, he still produced the output. He still was out there, and then the amount of times he was so influential in our comeback wins, like against Wolfsburg in 2016 quarterfinal, down 2-0 first leg, scores a hat trick, and then the next year later in the Champions League against Atletico, and then against Bayern, and then the final against Juve. Just unbelievable clutch player.
Before we move on,
clutch player.
Let me ask you.
Yeah.
Cristiano's overhead kick against Juventus, or Bale's against Liverpool in the final? Don't give me explanation. Pick one.
Ronaldo's.
I disagree.
I just think
the final. It's against Liverpool, and I think Cristiano's had better marketing than Bale's
against the concussed carriers.
Oh, here we go. All right, next.
They're probably that.
Nah, come on, next. All right.
But I think
who's your 9?
My 9, Di Stefano.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Di Stefano.
I don't think anyone can argue that, can they?
Like, we weren't around to watch him, but not just reading up on him but watching his highlights and you degree as well.
100%.
Just the way the amount of goals he scored, the type of goals he scored, the way he'd move around in the pitch, and then just his
100%.
legacy. Like, he's just very well respected. And it could have been a different story. About him going to Barcelona years ago. It
100%.
could have not turned out right for it. But then he was stayed at the club as a coach as well, and I think as a president as well for a short time, and then he became honorary president, and then just he's so adhered to the fans, and even with the players that any new signing for Real Madrid, they'd see one of the things that they love was have Di Stefano there presenting with the trophy. I think just he embodied Real Madrid. I think he put us on the map.
The fact that it's been 60 to 70 years since he was there, and we're still talking about him as possibly the best in the top 5 or 6 of all time.
Easily.
I think we can't argue with
They
him.
call him the blonde arrow back in
The blonde arrow.
Yeah.
Let's just
he has to be.
He's Argentinian, yeah? Cool.
100%.
Played
I'm
for
going to
Spain.
say
Played for Spain too.
the most
Colombia, didn't he?
Yeah. back when you could play for multiple
Nations.
teams. Yeah.
the most complete player of all time. A centre forward who would come back. He was Cruyff before Cruyff. He was Messi before Messi. The ultimate false 9. Come back as a deep line playmaker and tell you to go forward. Then he'll go forward and still score the same
So do you
rate.
think he was the first international superstar?
Look, international superstar is a difficult one, Jonathan, because of media in the 50s and because of the Franco era.
In hindsight, looking back now, knowing what we know, would you consider him the first international superstar?
Quite possibly, yeah.
One of. I think he was around the time when Pele put his name on the map as well.
I think it was just before Pele.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and then Pele started, I think,
Pele
halfway.
started 58 World Cup.
And he was around 50s to the
55. Well,
onwards.
Stefano got there about 53, 54 for Real Madrid, and they started winning in 55 in the Champions League trophies, the European Cup trophy. Interesting question I would like to ask you guys. What do you think the kind of player he would be if he was playing in modern day?
That's the...
Yeah, would he be one of those players that would hold the ball up? Would he do?
Yeah, I reckon he would play probably more
or
of
a target man.
Yeah, I reckon he'll play more of a number 10. He was very industrious in defense. A lot of people don't give him the credit for the amount of times he would come back and control defense.
I don't think he'll be a 9 in modern football.
If he was a 9, it would be definitely like a false 9, like in the mold that Messi would play for a number of years. But yeah, definitely one of the most complete players, if not the most complete player.
Yeah, definitely.
So the last spot in your starting 11 for Real Madrid is
I think we're both going to agree on this one.
Yeah, I think one of my favourite players of all time. And this guy was the first name to appear on the back of one of my first Real Madrid jerseys, Raul.
Ooh, okay. That's not what I had in mind, but...
Yes, for me, Raul.
Oh, really? That's going to be very interesting. I can't wait to hear what Jonathan's all-time 11 and if it differs to ours.
Okay.
I don't have one.
I think you have a name in mind.
But I have a name in mind that was not Raul.
Fair enough.
I think for me...
Why Raul?
I think Raul, number one, he, born in Madrid. Yes, he started off Atletico Madrid when he was...
Did he?
Yeah, he was in the youth team until, I think it was at age 10 or 11, 12, but then they got rid of their youth. They got rid of their youth system. They scrapped it, and then Real Madrid, Real Madrid picked him up, and and then since then, it's really hard these days. It's been hard to see players from the Castilla make it to the first team and then cement themselves. A lot of them, they show a bit of promise, and then they fade away, then they get loaned out, and then they end up getting sold 100%. Away. But now Raul was the one that kind of he kept stuck there. And then the amount of goals he scored, he started off as a midfielder, moved up forward, and I think just he wasn't naturally gifted because he came through the ranks the same time as Guti, and Guti he was a naturally gifted player.
One of the most naturally
very
gifted
skillful.
players,
But why Raul pushed his career further and achieved more than Guti was mentally, and Guti had this lavish lifestyle, and that's what hindered his career, I think. And then Raul just stuck to it. Hard work, great ball control, great holding of the ball, great shot on goal too as well, and just always in the right spot at the right time, I think. And
a good 9.
And a perfect foil as well to feed off, back when he was feeding off playing next to Ruud van Nistelrooy. as
100%.
well. I think he was just
And that's the thing.
So would you
amazing.
Go, so would you go with that decision?
Yeah,
Ak?
yeah, that and then some. Like, yes, he was technically
Oh, is Raul your
right winger, 100%,
Alright.
100%. And it's because at the
Or
end of
front
the day,
line, yeah.
at
Front
the end of the
line,
day, well, front line. I mean, however you want to really position it, I would position it though in a 4-3-3 with Di Stefano as a false nine. So Ronaldo and Raul would be coming in, cutting in on the wings, and I think Raul would really excel in that era if he was playing like in that kind of area today. Definitely has to go there. When you think Real Madrid, you think Raul. He was one of the most beloved players fans ever had a witness to watch. And it wasn't just the scoring output or the trophies. Like, this comes down to legacy. When Ronaldo went to Real Madrid, he went and he wasn't CR7 anymore. He was CR9. And that's because of the respect that Raul garnered in the club. No one made him take the number 7 off him.
Fair point.
He will still be my number 7 now. Ronaldo can have number 25 for all I care.
Until I'm here. Until I'm here,
100%.
I'm still number 7.
He is Raul. He is number 7 forever.
I think as well, like he was a great role model. I think
And
the way he conducted himself so professionally and just with class. And I think he had
100%.
no red cards in his career. I think hardly any yellow cards, if I remember.
And
why did he have to end his career in Schalke?
well, why not? I mean, it
No,
wasn't.
I'm asking why did he leave Real Madrid?
I think
That's the question.
one thing I think how can I say is Jose Mourinho came in and
Oh, boy.
probably look, maybe he just said, look, I don't have a space for you in the team I want. And yeah, I think, which was a shame because he deserved a better send off. And I thought he would be the one player
that retired.
that would try
Yeah.
and not play for another club, one
Same.
club man.
Absolutely, it was a.
That's what really saddens me.
It was a disappointing thing that
Sadly.
he moved on to a different club because we would love to have seen him retire as a one club player in that way. And look, it has to be said, his career peaked and then it dropped off quite drastically at one point. However, in my opinion, to defend his numbers from about 2004 to 2007, I believe, there was massive upheaval of the club. From 2003 to was no longer the sole striker, the spotlight guy. You had R9 there, and Raul had to become a much more of a hold-up player and a creator for everyone else. He had to be very unselfish in that regard. I think at the end of the day, though, his peak was so high for us as a club, as a fandom. And honestly, you can't really argue too much with the trophies. 3 Champions Leagues, a number of La Liga titles.
He was very intelligent. He was a very
So
intelligent.
Mourinho's the cause
I thought-
of Casillas and Raul leaving the club.
Honestly,
Casillas-
Mourinho is the cause of a lot of problems for.
Oh, that's
for
another
our club.
topic for another day.
Let's not get Akram started on Jose
I'm-
Mourinho. Let's be
I'm,
honest there.
Yeah, it's
Alright.
yeah.
So, look, Raul is a little bit of a surprise
Yep.
for me.
I'm quite offended that you
I think
think
I know
that
who
it's
you're
a
gonna
surprise.
say.
What's the name do you think I had in mind?
I was going to say Ferenc Puskas.
Yes. Pushkas, I mean, you have a
tough
FIFA international goal trophy
Named after him.
named after him. I mean, like, it's once again
It's
going
tough.
back to the Stefano talk. It's been 50 to 70 years since he played.
It's tough.
And we are here talking about him.
It's
When you talk to Raul, I think Ronaldo, Brazilian Ronaldo, was a better 9 than Raul.
Yeah, but Raul wasn't.
different type of players though.
I get it, but you might compare Raul to maybe a Batistuta or another 9.
No,
Right?
but
But Puskás for me defeats the decade, the times. So I thought he
Yeah.
would have been in the starting 11.
look, the first thing I would say though is that Raul wasn't a 9 in the classic design. He wasn't a prima punta where his main goal was to score. He was more of a second striker. He would play off players like Fernando Morientes and R9. He would link up the midfield with attack and still score. But I think what you got to realize is for Real Madrid fans the world over, Raul came at a time when they weren't dominating. You just had the Barcelona dream team. And Raul came when there wasn't really that much to be excited about Real Madrid.
There was
it coincided with
There was a
that-
European drought as well.
I get that.
There was a massive
look,
European
and I
drought.
get that, and I agree. You have Di Stefano and Cristiano, who I think we can all 3 of us agree on, are your top, your 2 up front. Next to them,
I do agree, but I
you
have to say
have Puskás, Ronaldo, the real Ronaldo, the original Ronaldo,
Oh yeah.
and Raul. So two of you have picked Raul over Puskás and the Brazilian Ronaldo.
You've got to remember that Ferenc Puskás wasn't a classic number 9 either. They lined up,
I'm not saying he was. I'm saying you have Cristiano.
With R9
you have Cristiano. You have Di Stefano, and to pick a third attacking player, you have picked Raul over Puskás and the Brazilian Ronaldo.
I think R9. Look, to be honest, his best days
were Inter.
Even the end of Barcelona, that 1 year Barcelona, and Inter, then before the injury. He came to Real Madrid.
But then I go back to the criteria.
Yeah,
go back to the criteria.
And plus, the way Ronaldo left as well wasn't the best. They didn't really get on with Capello very well.
True, but I think as you said, the criteria. So let's analyze the criteria for a moment. The criteria was trophies, longevity, legacy.
Yeah, and
Ronaldo played for how many years? 5, 4?
R9, 4.5.
4.5. One La Liga trophy.
One La Liga trophy. Yeah.
He had, if you were talking about peaks of each player's career, I would leave Cristiano Ronaldo off the whole thing then. Screw him and put R9. I'm just saying, if you think about the peak of a career.
I'm talking more about their time at Real Madrid. Yeah.
Look, I think personally, I don't know Real Madrid as much as you guys do. I'll say that once and over again. But I think Puskás deserves a special mention.
Oh look,
he deserves a special mention, and I totally.
It was hard to. It was actually hard to leave him out. I think he'd definitely be a spot on first sub off the bench.
Like I said, I think of my 4-3-3 with two wingers that cut inside, giving Cristiano Ronaldo a lot of his strengths as the inside forward. I think Raul would suit an inside forward role very well. If you had a false 9, the way I think Di Stefano would be able to play in this era, kind of thing. Ferenc Puskás wouldn't be able to play that right wing role. You would then talk about changing that entire formation. You would have to put Ferenc Puskás and Ronaldo as your two strikers, with Di Stefano as an attacking midfielder, and that's fine as well. And that would be very, no one's going to complain. The problem is that this is the burden that you have when you are a Real Madrid supporter. Yeah. You've got to leave someone out.
John. I mean, you have Hugo Sanchez, you have Butragueño,
Ivan Zamorano as well,
Luis Figo. You have
Figo as well.
We didn't have Francisco Gento in ours.
Yeah.
So you got to understand.
Kaká wouldn't say put him only because his time at Real wasn't.
True, but in terms of overall ability, I can see why he put it. Yeah. But this is why people need to be more sympathetic. This is why people need to be more sympathetic to Real Madrid supporters. It is a hard life trying to figure out who should deserve.
It is. So many stars in your life.
I don't know about a hard life, but they're still the most demanding club in the world, and you could no matter who
every fan can say that.
Cristiano Ronaldo is.
No, we really are.
No matter who you are, Cristiano Ronaldo, Raul, Roberto Carlos, Marcelo, they've all been booed. They've all been booed, and some of them can handle it, some of them don't. So
you literally have a guest on your podcast that was happy with selling Ronaldo. So yes, we do have the most demanding fans in the world.
Now, who's your coach for your starting 11, Adasi?
My coach. So this was a tough one, man. And if I was to pick one, I had 3 in mind: Del Bosque, Zidane, and Capello. But if I was to pick one, it would be it'd have to be Zidane.
Wow.
I think so. I think...
Why?
It's up. He came at a time when the club was struggling. He replaced Rafa Benitez. And he had no coaching experience other than Castilla in the Real Madrid youth team. And I was sceptical at the start, thinking, he's inexperienced. He's, this is a completely different kettle of fish here. This is his first team football. And... it's demanding club. Yes, he knows the club very well, but the way he got the club all the way to win the Champions League and also to come back into La Liga contention, I still think, what if he joined Real as coach early in that season, we would have won La Liga because we were catching up to Barcelona. Because the amount of mistakes that Benitez did, especially in the first Clásico that season, we lost 4-0 because he didn't play Casemiro. I think Zidane would have played Casemiro. I think people think that he's lucky, he had Cristiano Ronaldo, he's got a great squad, and he's a great motivator, but he's more than that. He's the way he reads sometimes, and yes, he's still learning. It's the thing, he's still young, but from what he's achieved already, and for what he can achieve, he'd be my favourite coach of all time.
Look, you can't argue against his numbers, Champions League wise.
Yeah, and
it's going to be a little bit hard for him to coach himself in your starting 11.
Yeah, but it's the people.
It's how good he is, Jonathan.
Yeah,
I'm
but
sorry
the
to
thing
tell
is,
you.
like, I'm telling you, the way he came in, and then when he left, like, they
So you're saying right now that Zidane is the best coach Real Madrid's ever had in his history?
from what I've seen, I think, I believe.
Okay.
It's a tough one, but
All right, so I have to disagree with Adasi. I have to disagree that yes, like Zidane was my favorite player of all time. The fact that he's Real Madrid's coach right now and has led to such a successful era, I absolutely love. I think that's fantastic, right? And Del Bosque definitely deserves a mention because he oversaw the circus of the Los Galacticos era. But my pick will be Miguel Munoz. 100%. Munoz oversaw the 1960 Champions League win, which was considered quite possibly the greatest team of all club football's history. The Champions League final against Eintracht Frankfurt is widely considered the greatest Champions League final, European Cup final that there has ever been. It was when Di Stefano and Puskás were at their most unbelievable and unbeatable. He oversaw a collection of absolute stars, including Francisco Gento, including Di Stefano, including Ferenc Puskás, and he won. He continued his coaching career up until 1966, where he won another Champions League final. And between 60 and 66, he won 5 Spanish league titles in a row. And if one thing you have to give it to Zidane that he's not accomplished would be consistent La Liga titles.
yeah, and I think time will tell for that because we'll see because he's still
Well,
in his young days of coaching.
And to be honest, something you guys have brought up over and over again in the last hour was how demanding the Real Madrid fans are.
very,
100%.
very.
And Miguel Munoz is someone that stood at the club for about 15 years as a coach.
That's it.
So I think
Look,
that
if-
for itself speaks.
I think he was up there as well. I think for me, I'm just going based on what I've seen day to day, and I think that's kind of
Why
like
did Del Bosque miss out of Zidane for you? Considering Del Bosque had to deal with such big personalities in the change room.
It was tough. And I was going to pick him too. And he was been a close second for me.
And the Spain success he's had as well.
Exactly. But it was a tough one. I think De Bosque was going to be my first choice, but I just felt like that Zidane's 3 Champions League in a row. No one's ever done that. I think just gets that.
Recency bias.
Yeah. So I think that, but as well, I think
The optometrist test.
I just think he's. I just think like there's more to him than what people see. People think that he had Cristiano, or he has a quality squad, and he's just a good motivator. That's all. But I've seen him, and he's brought in youngsters as well, like Federico Valverde now, and now he's slowly trying to integrate like players like Felamendi. This is more talking recent times.
Yeah.
I just think there's more to him, and he's reading the game a bit better. He's still learning, but I still think for what he's achieved already in 3.5 years, and to leave and to come back, and then I think the way he handles himself as well with the media, I think the way he handles and composes himself
Fair enough.
is very important for any coach, because so many coaches have come and gone, and they haven't been able to handle the pressure. Even the great special one, Jose Mourinho.
All right. Give me, without going too much into detail, give me a bench that you would. I don't want to hear stories on why and this. Just give me a bench.
You don't know us very well if you don't think we're going to give you some stories and context.
Just
mate.
give me
But,
a quick summary of all your benches.
all
Give me 3, 4, 5 players.
3, 4, 5 players. I'll hit it right now. First of all, Ferenc Puskás definitely deserves
Yeah.
it.
Next.
Amazing player. Second, Francisco Gento, most successful Real Madrid player of all time. Third player, Xabi Alonso. He was my pick instead of Redondo, and I couldn't decide between the two at first. So he definitely has to get there.
Defender.
Santa Maria.
Yep. Goalkeeper.
Keylor Navas.
Okay. Adasi.
Okay, I think I'll start with goalkeeper Keylor Navas with his 3 Champions Leagues in a row, and the fact that he was so close to leaving the club on the final day, so close to leaving, and the fact any player, he just put his socks up, proved everyone wrong. Very important to me. Defender. I'm going to say Dani Carvajal. He's been there for a long time. Number of trophies he's won. I think as well. He went out on loan, and usually players that go on loan, they come back or they don't become a success. They get sold off. But he then cemented himself as a right back.
Midfielder.
Clarence Seedorf. I really enjoyed the way he played. I think that
So set off on top of Makalele?
just
Okay.
only because he was a bit longer. And as well, that goal against Atletico, that long range goal in '97 season, he was a quality player. And the only reason they sold him was because at the time Real Madrid had financial problems. In 2000, he was sold to Inter in the winter transfer window. Next, how many is that? 3. That's 3. 2 more. I'd go with Puskás. The golden era, the 50s. It was very hard to leave him out of the starting lineup.
And last one?
Last one, I'm going to go with Hugo Sanchez.
Yeah.
He was just a typical number 9 striker.
One of those players that could play a bad game, but score a
target
hat-trick.
man. I think he scored
38 goals in 1987, was it?
Yeah,
I believe.
yes, late 80s,
Could be
yeah.
87, 88.
Late-
38 goals. Way before Ronaldo or Messi ever thought about scoring all the goals
Yeah.
in the soft defensive leagues that we have now. That was
Come
back in the
on.
80s.
When-
That was back in the 80s when people would kick the shit out of you.
They got chopped.
38 goals.
So you say Maradona's the best of all time then?
I am saying that, and I'm very proud of it.
No, I can't argue with that.
All right, so quickly, give me a rundown of your starting 11 and who the captain is. And then we're done.
Okay, so
From goalkeeper to striker.
name all my starting
Yep.
players. Casillas, Roberto Carlos, Hierro, Ramos, Salgado. And then you've got Redondo, Zidane, Modric, and you got Di Stefano, Raul, and Cristiano Ronaldo. Captain, for me,
Yep,
would be Fernando Hierro.
nice. Akram?
Okay, so for me, and just want to point out, why does everything go back to Argentinian players with you? Just let's analyze
I'm as
that.
biased as you are.
For another episode, ladies and
As
gentlemen.
if you didn't expect that.
As if I didn't expect that. That's totally true. All right. First of all, Inca Casillas, Shando, Sergio Ramos, Fernando Hierro, Marcelo. For me, Fernando Redondo, Modric, Zidane, Cristiano Ronaldo, Alfredo Di Stefano, and Raul on the right wing.
Captain?
My captain will be Sergio Ramos because I like a bit more charisma in my captaincy, Jonathan.
Bit of
I
gravitas.
went with Hierro because he'd had a bit less cards than Ramos. He can be on the pitch more.
That is true. What's a good if your captain's always off the field?
Exactly.
And my challenge to you guys at home is, if any of you think you are a bigger Real Madrid fan than the two guys we have here, contact us, message us at Football Retro, and we'll pull you to the challenge. We'll get you on a live quiz with these two guys and see if you guys know more than the guys that we have here with us. Thank you, and see you next time.